We all know it is difficult to stay steady in the face of anxiety. Most of us would like to be able to say, we kept our dignity, we remained calm, we did not run from this one to that, we remained controlled and confident, and we stayed steady in the face of anxiety. We didn't lose our cool. We were not at all flushed with anger. We were neither outwardly aggressive nor inwardly agitated. We stayed steady in the face of anxiety. Some would say, if you've been upset, if you've been insulted, if you put up with enough, then surely you're entitled to be upset, anxious, and angry. Surely it's understandable and expected. It's a common way to respond to such situations, to some people, to some provocations. And so it is. Why is it desirable or necessary or better to stay steady in the face of anxiety? And I put it to you, people who are unsettled and unsteady in the face of anxiety, they tend to believe that perhaps their life is threatened, or their status and dignity are under attack. They feel out of control and their judgment is affected. Or they feel like they can't cope in the situation, can't think straight, can't live out the hopes that they thought would come their way. Or people are anxious and unsteady in different situations. They may be worried about the future. They may be worried about their relationships. They may be worried about their guilt or their anger or their losses or their grief. And they may not recognize their unsteady anxiety, but may behave erratically, destructively, and with low self-worth without realizing that how anxious or how their anxiety is driving them at that time. People who are anxiously unsteady may say it is because they feel so inadequate in this situation, or they may not be able to articulate that, but they behave as if they are inadequate or inferior or even ill-informed. People may see that their parents are fading away, that people who were once trustworthy are now no longer trustworthy, that they can no longer be trusted, that people remain steady in face of anxiety. We know those people, if they can only do that, they're better able to keep control of their negative emotions, their negative thoughts, their negative behavior. People who are remaining steady in the face of anxiety, we know that they're better to be with, that they cope better with challenging experiences. And they gather together some good confidence in themselves, and they help to create confidence in others. So here are the positives and the negatives of these anxieties. People who remain steady in the face of anxiety, they tend to solve their problems better. They see the world in a more congenial light, and they even feel better about themselves. And they're ready to give something worthwhile to others. That's if they are remaining steady. So on this night, we look towards Jesus of Nazareth, and we might imagine what he must have been like. How did he stay steady in the face of the anxieties that had built up around him and in him? So I'd like to follow through some possibilities. We can see that he had a mission, a meaning in his life, and he was intent on following it. That tended to keep him steady. We saw that he was close to certain people, certain supportive people, and that tended to keep him steady. He sustained a strong sense of who he was, his own identity. And that kept him there in spite of the threats and in spite of the attacks being made on him. We hear him speaking soft words, then direct words, then words of a stable demeanor. He stayed steady. He called on the positive power of memory of other times, memory of the faith that was his, memory as a source of steadiness. And from that he called on his culture, his tradition, his religion, his resources that came to him thereby, his capacity to rejoice, his capacity to find resilience. And so there he is. Perhaps we are to follow his example. Perhaps we can search for the same strength as he found. Perhaps we can cultivate the wisdom of mind, the steadiness of emotion, the strength of spirit, to which he pointed and which he showed was possible. Perhaps we're caught in the same tensions or similar tensions. On the one hand, of a reflective steadiness and strength of purpose, as he was. And yet he could reach out to a new view of himself in the face of the stresses upon him. He could reach out to a new faith, in fact, a new faith in himself, and a new faith in a resolve to be who he could be for others in the present situation and for the future. We know that anxiety, our anxiety, can be like many dogs let loose in the backyard, running in all directions. In fact, anxiety can take you over, take me over, take us all over, and tyrannize your waking state and trouble your sleeping state. Anxieties are no respecter of persons, of status, of age, whatever. But we do know anxiety can run out of control. We do know it can take many forms. And it comes at difficult and different times. It can be powerful in its strength and very embarrassing as it exposes our weaknesses. Therefore, we need to do something about our anxieties. And we can. If we look at it in terms of our aim, the objective is to reduce its strength, and to understand its comings and its goings. Because as we understand it, we can we put ourselves in a better position to control it. We can recognize its many disguises, because it can dress up as something else, and we don't realize how anxious we're being and how that anxiety is driving other behavior, other attitudes, and other thinking in ourselves and in others. So we need to cultivate the strengths that we're given. Strengths. Yes, we have strengths. We need to call on the supports that are close by. You can see I'm following very much what happened to Jesus of Nazareth. Calls on the strengths that are there. Calls on the supports that were right next to him. Chooses quiet words as we can. Quiet words calm emotions, strong emotions, but calm emotions. Embrace the culture of strength passed down through the ages. And hear the words of the faith in such a way that we internalize those words as strength for the inner spirit, thereby integrating those words of faith into the very depths of our soul, and know the enhancing power of the faith, a faith in the context of the community of faith. So staying steady in the face of anxiety. There it is. There are the possibilities. We know how often we run out of control, how easy it is to be far from steady, and yet the goal is there. And if anything, the Jesus of the faith is trying to say, here is a better way to cope with our everyday anxieties. Here is a better way to cope with the big anxieties of great traumas and disasters. And as we cope with them differently, we're different people. And we're not only in ourselves, but for other people as well. So as we come this evening to receive the sacrament, we know that this sacrament is about this very matter, calling on the faith of the culture through the ages, taking into ourselves the words and the symbols of the faith, letting them become integrated within our very soul, so that they become a steadying influence as we deal with those anxieties. Would you please stand?